Today on Bruin Lens, a student's guide to understand and prepare for financial independence. Bruin Lens starts now. Welcome to Bruin Lens. I'm Ash Orduna. We will be talking about financial steps and safeguards students can take to building savings, using bank accounts, and credit responsibly, setting goals, and more. Today I'm joined by Amanda Morton, VP of Relationship Development at Cyprus Credit Union, and Ryan Thoroman, Bursar at SLCC. Welcome, Amanda and Ryan. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Excited to be here.
We're so glad to have you. So let's get started. We recently had a 4-part workshop series at the Taylorsville campus on financial literacy. Now, we thought a Bruin Lens episode would be a great follow-up. So let's start with a basic question. Why is financial literacy essential for students as they prepare for their future?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Thanks for asking that. So I think students may have a perception that the Office of the Bursar, which is cashiering and accounts receivable, I think that's probably how students know it better, that we're really just focused on sending out bills and them making their payments. And while that is important to us, and that is a core function of what we do, we also care about the overall financial health of our students because we realize that their financial health is crucial to their success as a student, but is also crucial to their lifelong success. And so college is a really great opportunity for students to begin building that foundation and begin building good habits. And by developing those skills while they're in college, it really can help students to ensure that they're able to stay on financial track, which means they can continue to register for courses, complete their program, and take that next step in their life. And then hopefully by building that foundation that once they leave, they can continue to sharpen, harness those skills, that they can achieve some of the lifelong goals that they have, whether that's, buying a house, starting a family, being able to go on vacations. We want our students to have a full, successful life.
Yeah. Really, when we talk about a lot of what keeps us awake at night, when we think about stressors, it comes back to our financial health often. So usually it's bills, or am I making enough money? Is my paycheck going to last? Those kinds of things. So if we can start to make sure that students are thriving at the student level before they graduate and move forward, we can hopefully create kind of this ecosystem where they're not necessarily experiencing such difficulties later in life.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. So what specific steps should a student take to build an emergency fund while in school?
Great question. Okay, so an emergency fund, we're really talking about 3 to 6 months of whatever your total expenses are. So before we can figure out how we're going to do that, we need to know how much that money actually equals up to. So the first thing we want to do is we want to identify how much money do we have coming in on a regular basis, meaning what's our income, and how much money needs to go out. So our bills, our rent, our phones, all that kind of stuff. Once we figure out how much money it is that's going out, then we need to say, okay, at the end of each month, in order to make it without having any income, I would need to have X amount saved, I don't know, $2,000 or something like that. And then we're just going to times that number by however many months we're saving up for. So the tricky part here is that number can feel really daunting and really large, right? We're talking about 3 months of our total expenses, especially if we're working part-time as students, or maybe full-time, but maybe in more entry-level jobs. So the trick here, it's not waiting till it's the perfect time to start, because that will never occur. It's just starting the habit. So even if that's something as small as $5 a month, that you're starting the habit of putting money into emergency savings, even if that's not going to equal a full month, just starting and sticking with it instead of trying to wait for perfection.
So which type of bank accounts do you recommend for students? Checkings, high yield savings, certificates of deposits, and why?
Yeah, each of these different areas you mentioned have such unique and important things that are involved with them. Let's start with the checking. So really for a student, the most important thing we want to say is are there going to be fees associated with my checking account? So sometimes fees can be assessed if maybe a certain direct deposit isn't hit or a certain amount of transactions aren't done. So with a student, we may have some fluctuation in how much money's coming in, how often we're able to use our debit card, that kind of stuff. So we want to say, number one, is it going to be free across the board? We want to make that's really important because you don't want to pay $12 a month if you don't, or whatever it's going to be if you don't need to. And then the next thing is that as we're moving into our savings mechanisms, really just kind of starting with the traditional regular savings, we're all familiar with that. The other two options that you mentioned, a high yield savings, which is like a money market savings or a certificate of deposit, we want to move into those as we're becoming more comfortable and understanding that I'm not going to necessarily need that money to be available to me all the time. If we utilize a money market, that's still a high yield savings. It's something called liquid, meaning you can access it. Certificate of deposit, that means that you're guaranteeing to the financial institution they're not going to touch that money for whatever period of time you agree to. So before we make that jump, we just want to make sure we're really comfortable having money sitting in regular savings where we're not touching it before we do that. So you can see a lot of different roles these products play, but number one is it going to be free? And then the second part of it's going to be free is it going to cost me if I have to touch it, which is the certificate thing, you know. But the checking account, is it going to be free?
Definitely. Okay, sweet. Prioritize free and make sure you can handle not touching it.
Yes.
And I do think, too, a lot of banks, they'll offer nice incentives
Yep.
with checking accounts, correct? Especially for younger people.
Yeah, that's right. So for example, Cyprus Credit Union, because we partner here with Salt Lake Community College, we actually offer all of the SLCC students $325, which that's almost a paycheck sometimes, right? So if you decide that you want to have an account with Cyprus, then we do offer up to $325.
Okay, smart. I love that. We love community. So.
Yes.
Good, thank you. So how can they use credit cards responsibly to build credit without paying interest or fees?
Yeah, number one thing we want to do is don't be afraid to start credit. We just need to start it, and as soon as 18 years old, because later in life, when it comes to making our first purchases, you know, like a vehicle or a home, we're going to need to have a robust credit history, meaning we need to have some experience under our belts with credit. So oftentimes at 18, you can start out with $300 to $500 line of credit, very small amount. And the best thing you can do is actually just decide, okay, there's one specific area that I'm going to use this credit card for. For example, I think a great one is gas. We say every time I fill up my car, I'm going to utilize this credit card for that, but then I'm going to pay it off when I get my next paycheck or with the money that's already sitting in my checking account. That creates the habit of using it well. And the other thing, though, we want to keep in mind with credit cards is that in order to have optimal credit, you actually don't want to spend more than 30% of your total available line. That seems kind of crazy, right? Where they're like, oh, we're going to give you this line of credit, but don't use more than 30% of it. But that's more credit bureau driven. That's just how they say that they're going to give you optimal credit. So for example, what I mean by that is if you have a $1,000 limit, you don't ever want to have more than about $300 of a balance on that credit card, or what will happen is we'll start driving your credit score down. So we want to make sure that we're keeping that balance low. Best way to do that is by only utilizing it for a couple previously identified things, and then just making sure to pay it off every single month so you don't get interest accumulating on it.
That's awesome to know because I did not know that beforehand.
Nobody ever does. Nobody ever does, yes.
It's like a good little life hack almost.
It
So
really
to know
is, yeah. So if you can stay below that 30%. And truthfully, life happens and sometimes you have to get above that, but you just want to do what you can to get it back down as quickly as possible so it doesn't hurt your credit.
Definitely. Okay, thank you so much for that.
Yes.
So how should they set and prioritize short-term goals like rent, textbooks, travel, and then long-term goals like a car, grad school, or a first home?
Yeah. So short-term goals, we're really talking about something that's happening somewhere in, a month to 6 months, generally speaking. And so with those types of expenses, some are more situational. Like, for example, we don't maybe know really what the cost of our textbooks are going to be next semester, but we do know what the cost of our rent is going to be. So what we want to do is whatever we consistently know, for example, our rent, right? We know what that's going to be. We are pretty good as a society of understanding we have to save for our rent every month or our mortgage payment or whatever that looks like. But it's where the guesswork kind of comes in is those when we go from that 1 month out to that 6 month, things, it starts getting kind of far away. It looks a little less clear out there, so we kind of don't really do a lot with it. So what we can do here is just make our best guesstimate of what an expense is going to be for this particular area in 6 months, and then we want to kind of work backwards. So for example, if we need to save $600 for tuition next fall, and we have 6 months until that happens, then we know, okay, I can save $100 a month to meet that $600 requirement. If it's a little bit less, great, I have some extra money. If it's a little bit more, it's not going to completely strap all my cash to come up with a little bit more, right? With the long-term goals, though, this is again kind of prioritizing what our timeline on those might be. So a car you had mentioned, we know in about a year or so how much longer we have, with the car. Is it a year? Is it 2 years? Unless something just crazy and tragic happens with it. So this is again one of those things where it seems farther out than it is, but at that point in time, we'd want to maybe start looking around. What kind of cars would I want to get? What would the cost of that going to be? If I plug these numbers in right now we're using a calculator tool on the internet, what is it telling me that monthly payment's going to be? Could I afford that now? If I couldn't, what changes do I have to make so I could afford that in a year? It's really more about pre-planning than it is about anything else.
Definitely create your vision board and
Yes.
adjust.
Yes.
Yeah, smart.
And something I wanted to add that I think is important is, at least with students' educational goals, that it's really important that they utilize existing resources. And so going to our Office of Financial Aid and Scholarships, completing the FAFSA, which is the free application for federal student aid, because there's no reason to leave money on the table that may be available. And the reality is we have a lot of scholarships that are available. Sometimes I believe maybe aren't given out because nobody applied for that money. And so it's always, it certainly doesn't hurt to check with them and see what's available and see if there's something that fits that particular student's needs. And then the other thing I would throw out there too is there's a number of work study and part-time student positions that are available at SLCC that, if that is a good fit for students, can work really nicely because you at least have the faith that your employer is going to be supportive of your pursuit, your educational goals, and I think try to work to help you strike that balance.
Definitely don't spend your own money if you don't have to.
Yes, there is a lot of scholarships that go underutilized. Yes.
Ryan, how can tuition payment plans help students stay on track financially?
Yeah, so tuition payment plans are a very practical tool to help students plan and budget. And so rather than having to pay a large sum at the beginning of the semester, they can spread that sum out over multiple installment payments. And we offer a variety of payment plans to offer flexibility to students to meet their different needs. Something that we implemented not long ago was a longer term payment plan that is 5 installments. And so we figured that one additional installment could make a difference for our students in helping them to balance out their budget of, income, whether that's, pay from their work or financial aid or other income with those expenses. And we realize, obviously students have a number of other expenses to factor in, whether that's gas that is rising, unfortunately, or other expenses that, frankly, have been rising as of late. And so, I think it just goes back to what Amanda was sharing earlier of it's just always best for our students to have a plan going in, and payment plans are one of the ways to help in that.
Yeah, and they are very useful, especially my partner recently just signed up for payment plans, and that extra installment is amazing. So, yeah,
I'm glad to
very
hear that.
good.
Good.
Yeah.
We love positive feedback.
Yes. Yes. Well, thank you, Amanda and Ryan, for joining us today. Is there a website or email that students can reach you out?
Yeah, so always love when students reach out. The reality is my role at this point, it's a lot of meetings and in my office, and so I always love engaging with students whenever I can. I'm located in the garden level or basement of the Student Center at Redwood. Yeah, students can swing by anytime. They can also email me. So my email is my first name, Ryan, dot my last name, Thoroman, at slcc.edu. And then we have wonderful resources on our website. We recently revamped it and added a lot of content. And that's www.slcc.edu/Bursar. One of the cool resources that we have there is we have a financial resources webpage. It includes campus financial resources, community financial resources. One of those big campus financial resources we have is our relatively new partnership with Cyprus Credit Union, where we offer workshops. You can sign up for a meeting with a financial advisor in person or virtual. And we're going to continue to expand our programming and offerings. And that's called Smart Sense is the name of that program. It's been going really well.
Yeah.
This semester, I think in total with our workshops, we had about 250 students attend.
Wow.
So
Awesome.
it's coming along nicely.
Perfect.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
We're giving some financial literacy out there. So
Yes.
good.
Yes. And it doesn't
Good.
hurt that if you come in person, you get free lunch.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's always a good way to bring people in.
Everybody loves
That's
lunch.
right.
They will always come
Yes.
for lunch.
That's
Perfect. And we can just find you at...
Yeah, so cypruscu.com, and then you can reach out to me directly through there.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you so much. Well, that's it for this episode of Bruin Lens. To watch this episode and past episodes of Bruin Lens, go to globeslcc.com or find us on facebook.com/slccsmc or find us on YouTube, X, and Instagram at slccsmc. I'm Ash Orduna. Thanks for joining us on Bruin Lens.